Let's talk about that feeling, that constant, low-level anxiety about your job. Well, way back in 1995, when we were all just getting used to the screech of dial-up modems, one book came out and painted a shockingly accurate and honestly a much darker picture of the future of work, our future. The book was Jeremy Rifkin's The End of Work. And just to put this in perspective, this was written before Google was even a thing, before most of us had email. This wasn't some hot take on the gig economy or the latest AI panic. No, this was a prediction of it, decades before it became our daily reality. Does that phrase sound familiar? It should. It's one of the first things that just smacks you in the face when you read this book. Everyone else was cheering as profits went up, but Rifkin pointed out the bizarre new reality. When a company did well, it often meant its employees got a pink slip.
And he didn't stop there. He went even further, arguing that technology was pushing us toward a future where, for the first time in history, human labor on a massive scale just wasn't going to be necessary anymore. I mean, think about how absolutely wild that idea sounded in the mid-90s.
And this quote right here, it just perfectly nails his whole point. The new tech wasn't just a tool to help us work better. It was actually becoming the new workforce. As one French official put it at the time, the working class was basically being handed its walking papers.
Now, you might be thinking Rifkin was just some doomsayer making wild guesses, but he wasn't. He framed his entire argument around a massive historical shift he called the Third Industrial Revolution. Let's dig into what he actually meant by that. And here is the absolute crucial difference. You see, the first two industrial revolutions, they gave us machines to replace our muscles. Yeah, doing the heavy lifting. But this third one? Oh, this was a whole different ballgame. It brought us thinking machines, designed to replace the human mind itself, to automate all those repetitive mental tasks that made up and still make up a huge chunk of all jobs. So, how did this whole revolution actually play out in the real world? Well, Rifkin identified the corporate playbook of the era. It was a strategy that sounded super innovative and productive, but in reality, it was just a brutally efficient engine for destroying jobs. And it had a name: re-engineering.
Yeah, the buzzword they used was computer-friendly, which sounds nice and harmless, doesn't it? But what it really meant was tearing down entire company structures, flattening out hierarchies, and just getting rid of whole layers of middle management, all to make the company run smoothly with new automated systems that needed way, way fewer humans. And if you think that sounds like an exaggeration, get this. This quote isn't from some critic of the process. It's from one of the biggest cheerleaders for re-engineering, an MIT professor named Michael Hammer. He wasn't saying a 75% job cut was a sad side effect. No. He was saying that was the feature. That was the goal. And the potential scale of this thing, it was just staggering. Studies from back then were predicting that this whole re-engineering wave could wipe out up to 25 million jobs in the US private sector alone. At the time, that was more than a quarter of the entire workforce. Just gone. Okay. But there was a safety net, right? We all heard the story. All those people who lost their jobs would just move into the booming service sector. Well, Rifkin was one of the first to explain exactly why that safety net was about to completely fall apart. I mean, this was the big promise of the 90s. Sure, manufacturing is going away, but hey, we'll all just become salespeople, clerks, and office managers. The problem was, those thinking machines we just talked about, they were coming for those exact white-collar jobs next. And it wasn't just a gut feeling. He had the numbers. Even by the early 90s, you could already see the service sector engine was starting to sputter out. Job growth had slowed way down, and this was before the automation wave even really hit its stride. The rescue party just wasn't coming. So what happens when you hollow out the middle of the job market? Well, you get a society that's split right in two. Rifkin predicted this new class structure. On one side, you have a small elite of what he called symbolic analysts. The software engineers, the consultants, the people who design and control the technology. And on the other side, a massive and growing number of displaced people with basically no economic role to play. And look, this wasn't just some dry academic theory for him. He was really worried about the real-world human cost of creating this huge, permanent underclass. He was predicting a future that, let's be honest, looks disturbingly like our present. This quote is just absolutely chilling. Think about it. It's not about being exploited for your labor anymore. It's about not being needed at all. It's about becoming economically irrelevant. From the market's point of view, you basically become invisible. As one analyst put it,
We don't need what they have, and they can't buy what we sell. And when you have that many people feeling irrelevant, well, Rifkin warned it would literally tear the fabric of society apart. He basically laid out a roadmap of the consequences: rising crime, a dangerous split between the rich and poor, and massive social and political instability as millions feel like they have absolutely no stake in the system.
But here's the thing. The book isn't all doom and gloom. The final part is actually dedicated to some pretty radical and now incredibly relevant solutions. These are the ideas for how we could have shared the incredible wealth created by technology. Ideas we basically spent the last 30 years ignoring.
He lays out this really clear two-part plan. First, he says, let's re-engineer the work week itself, share the remaining jobs by moving toward a 30-hour standard. And second, let's empower what he called the third sector, all that nonprofit, community, and volunteer work that gives people purpose outside of a traditional job.
And this really gets to the heart of it. Technology was always going to create more free time for humanity. The fundamental choice we faced was, what would that free time actually look like? Was it going to be mass unemployment for the unlucky many? Or was it going to be shared leisure for everyone? Back in 1995, Jeremy Rifkin gave us a clear warning and a set of potential solutions for the exact economic moment we find ourselves in today with AI and automation. He gave us a 30-year head start to have this conversation, to figure this out. So you have to ask, what are we waiting for?